Welcome back, everyone. Have you heard the phrase, people come in three forms: people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and people who say, what happened? My guest is definitely in the first part of what I just said. This is a person who makes things happen. This is Eric Siy. He's the CEO, executive director, rather, for the Fund for Lake George, an amazing organization. Recently, we got word that they're doing their annual meeting. And when we were looking at the guest speaker that was coming in, and we were looking at the topics that they're covering, we just had to have you come in and talk about the fund and talk about that precious lake we have called Lake George. So welcome. Very nice to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here.
Let's start with, a lot of organizations touch the lake.
Sure.
You've got the LGA, you've got the Waterkeepers, you've got all the townships and all that other stuff.
Right.
The Fund for Lake George stands out primarily because of its mission.
That's right. We apply professional science to solve the problems that are impacting Lake George. Nobody else is filling that niche. And the Waterkeeper is actually one of the Fund's signature programs.
Underneath the
it
banner
is.
of the Fund for Lake
Subsidiary
George.
to the Fund,
yes. Yes, we know that. Anybody that boats on Lake George, you'll see the Jefferson Project in action. There are a number of locations on the lake where you'll see these sort of strange things, and you think to yourself, is that a boat? What is that, a wind tower? What is that? And it's really a scientific project all over the lake, at different parts of the lake, to do a number of very, very important measurements to build the tools to be able to prove what needs to be done to protect this lake.
That's right. Now, the Jefferson Project is a collaboration of the Fund for Lake George, IBM, and RPI, and there's really nothing like it anywhere in the world. And its mission is to create the world's smartest lake for the purpose of making it the best protected lake. Nobody else is doing this, and it's tremendously exciting.
You know, when I was talking to Eric before, I wrote down three words, and what a wonderful flow this sort of creates. That if you have the information, then you have the power,
right,
and then you can influence.
Right.
And when you think about that, and you think about protecting our lake, you realize that science is at the core of that information and gaining that information.
It is. And you know, you've heard it, knowledge is power.
Yeah, right.
And what we're doing through the Jefferson Project at Lake George is really, we are providing empowered information. We are harnessing that information to inform policymakers, to inform people who care about the lake, residents and visitors, and use it to ensure Lake George is protected just as we know it now for generations to come.
That's a big task, and that requires a lot of information, a lot of power, a lot of influencing, and maybe we might toss in a little bit of arm twisting in there, you think?
You know, it can. It can, but it's funny. There is such a passion for Lake George. There's such a legacy that's tied to Lake George. And for anybody who hasn't seen Lake George, there really is no place like it on the planet. So it's not a tough sell.
Yes,
particularly if you have a product that sells itself, and Lake George really does.
You know what I notice here, though, in talking to you, Eric, is that a lot of people will talk this. They'll talk it in theory. They'll talk about it in terms of relating it to some other thing that they've experienced. But you really have to get to the point where you actually take this science and really work on sound solutions. Now, I hope this doesn't sound like a classroom here, but when it comes to Lake George, could anything be more important than applying that power and that knowledge to be able to get the solutions you need?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because science is also the great equalizer.
Yeah, good.
So everybody feels there's a level playing field. Nobody is being hoodwinked. We're not sugarcoating the solutions and implying onerous regulations. We're engaging people and informing them, all for the purpose of making them partners in this pursuit of protection.
You know what? I want to chase that for a second, because you know, you could look at business owners on one hand, you could look at environmentalists on the other hand, you could look at landowners on the homeowners. You know, do these people just live in these individual pockets and treat each other as really adversaries, or do you find a way to find the solution that works for everyone? Two questions.
Sure.
One is the current priorities.
Right.
And then the second question is, how do you tie together the business communities and the homeowners and the environmentalists to make certain that this is a win-win for everyone? Let's start with the priorities.
Sure. Well, the priorities really are wastewater and stormwater reduction, reducing road salt, which is highly destructive, and stopping aquatic invasive species, not just aquatic, but terrestrial invasives as well.
Yes, got
Those are the three big areas of focus for us right now.
And you will hear people frequently say that it isn't just, okay, the invasive species problem, that's one source over here. It's coming from every direction.
It is.
Every wind, every direction the wind blows, and every direction north, south, east, and west. Right?
It is. I mean, the lake is under siege in some respects. And this isn't Chicken Little.
That's
I mean,
right.
we know how to solve these problems, and we can only solve them together. We can't solve them individually, either the problems themselves or the constituents engaged in working to
Let's
protect
go to
them.
the constituents.
Sure.
How do you find that collaboration, how do you make that collaboration work?
Well, there's a great line, and I believe it to my bones, and it was from Teddy Roosevelt, and it is, the economy and environment are opposite sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
that's an absolute fact, right?
That's right?
So what do we have? Lake George is our common currency, and we either accrue the value of that currency by protecting that asset, and we treat it as an asset, or we allow it to decline and we suffer the consequences. And so we are very much focused on engaging the business sector, local government, the nonprofit sector, community organizations, homeowners associations, as well as public officials in Albany and even in Washington on the fate of the lake. How do we ensure this economic engine, the lifeblood of the region, it's a $2 billion regional economy that depends on the health of Lake George, how do we keep it that way? How do we keep it humming?
Right.
And that's our whole point.
Yeah, boy, that's very smart. Look, there's this annual meeting that's coming up. It's Saturday the 7th, in the morning, by the way. Isn't that refreshing? 9 to 11 a.m. Get up in the morning, get over to the Sagamore, and you will learn so much in 2 hours about what we're talking about. So many of us are tied to that lake in so many different ways. I don't care if you're a business, whether you're in tourism, whether you just are an environmentalist, or you love the lake, you're a homeowner, but we all use that lake, and we all love that lake. Go to this annual meeting, participate. And if you think you might be the only one there, remember they're expecting close to 500 people. So there are a lot of people invested in the health of this lake. Eric, I got to tell you, I talk to a lot of people. I interview a lot of people. Rarely do I find somebody as articulate and passionate about this as you are. That's really something. This is the Fund for Lake George. They deserve your support. Find them, Google them, donate money. The money goes right into these projects that Eric is talking about. And boy, carve out Saturday morning, July 7th. It'll be after the holiday and whatever. Get over to the Sagamore and with 500 of your closest friends and find out what's going on. Well, we're going to obviously have you back a bunch of times.
I sure hope so.
I want to know about this.
I
I'm
sure hope
our
so.
viewers do too. Thanks for taking the time to commit.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I'm grateful.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.